So let's move on to episode 4 now. The Ark of the Covenant has been found, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. And we'll continue to examine the biblical and the scriptural evidence for the alleged discovery of the Ark of the Covenant by the late Ron Wyatt. So let's just quickly summarise so far. According to the Bible and the spirit of prophecy alone, the Ark of the Covenant was hidden in a cave in Jerusalem. It's still there, and it still contains the earthly tables of stone. It will be rediscovered. The tables will be brought out and put on public display and shown to the entire world with a message. And Jesus was crucified on Mount Moriah outside the city walls, and really that only leaves the garden tomb. And that thick black line are the city walls. So another point then is that Ellen White says that Jesus was crucified on Mount Moriah, as we've seen, and outside the city walls, as we've seen. Now, if you look at Mount Moriah on the right, and you've got the Temple Mount down in the bottom right-hand corner, as you follow that mountain up in a sort of a northwesterly direction, Moriah goes outside the city walls, which is what Ellen White said, but it only goes outside the city walls for a little way. In fact, it only covers that blue circled area. Okay, that's the only part of Mount Moriah which is outside the city walls, and it's a very, very small area. So if you're looking for the site of the crucifixion, you're looking on Mount Moriah, north of the city walls, you've only got that blue circled area to look at. And it's a very small area, so you don't have much investigation to make. Now, as you look around that area, there is only one place where there's a skull feature in a cliff face. There's only one place which people say is a candidate for the site of the crucifixion, where there is a 1st century tomb, debatably. Some people debate that it's 1st century. But anyway, and that is, as we have said, that is the garden tomb. So really, if we're going to be sensible about it, the garden tomb is the site of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. It's the only place on Mount Moriah north of the city wall with a skull face feature and a tomb, and somewhere that claims to be the site of the crucifixion. So according to Sister White, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is definitely not the site of the crucifixion and burial of the Messiah. According to Sister White, the garden tomb is the only candidate for the crucifixion of Christ. Now, another point which I don't think I mentioned but would like to in the last few episodes is that Ellen White in 1915 in Prophets and Kings, page 453, she said that the Ark of the Covenant was secreted in a cave in Jerusalem, and then at the bottom there in bold she said, that sacred ark is yet hidden, it has never been disturbed since it was secreted. Now, I can't remember if I made this point or not, but just in case, that was written in 1915, nearly 100 years ago now, and so some might think that they could contend that the ark has been moved since. In other words, that the ark has been discovered by somebody and moved from that cave in Jerusalem in the last 100 years. Now, if that were true, then the burden of proof would be upon them. Okay, they would have to at least come up with some evidence, even if it's very vague, that has actually happened. If you're going to say that things have changed and they're not as they were, and things aren't as Ellen White wrote, then the burden of proof lies on you in order to do that. It wouldn't be up to me to prove that no one has found it. It would be up to you to prove that someone has found it and moved it. Okay, so the burden of proof lies upon those that claim things have changed. So you would need to come up with some kind of historical record or a news item, or even just some vague allegation even, that somebody at some time in the last 100 years has removed the Ark of the Covenant from a cave in Jerusalem. And no such allegation or record exists. So I'm not even asking for proof or evidence, just an allegation, and it doesn't exist. So don't forget that Jerusalem has, loosely speaking, been the centre of the world's attention for the last 100 years. It's been very highly monitored, and there's been a UN presence and a British presence, and the Israelis, of course, and the Palestinians and so forth. Not really nothing goes on in Jerusalem without somebody knowing about it. So if someone was to find something such as the Ark of the Covenant and move it from a cave in Jerusalem to somewhere else, it would definitely be noticed. No one's going to be able to do that in secret. Some kind of word would get out. So we're not even talking about a wilderness area or somewhere that's not very populated or inhabited or reported upon, and so that the Ark could just be found without anybody noticing. So Jerusalem is the centre of the world's attention, loosely speaking. Okay, so let's get on to today's episode, and that's what did the Ark look like. Here is a picture of what Ron Wyatt said the Ark of the Covenant looked like when he found it. Okay, now of course, if the Bible or the Spirit of Prophecy describes something different to this picture, then we would have to say that Ron Wyatt was a fraud and was lying. Okay, now one thing, I'll be honest, most of this information I got from arkfiles.net, and that's a friend of mine called Rebecca in Norway. She does an excellent presentation on this, much more in depth, much better than this one. So I would urge you to go to www.arkfiles.net and take a look at that particular episode and all of the episodes there. So all I did was take a few of the major points that she made, and I'm just going to quickly present them here. I also got some information from Ross Patterson, a good friend of mine in New Zealand. So this is what Ron Wyatt depicts the Ark of the Covenant to be like. I think you'll see that the main difference to all the other kinds of pictures and illustrations is that the cherubim are standing on the side of the Ark. Okay, now most of the alleged discoveries or the pictures show this kind of thing, with cherubim up upon the mercy seat and perhaps kneeling or some standing on it. Okay, so let's investigate what the Ark should look like according to the Bible and the Spirit of Prophecy. You'll find the first description in Exodus 25. It says, and thou shalt make 2 cherubims of gold. So we're talking about the cherubims now and their positioning, strictly speaking, because the only other elements of the Ark of the Covenant are the mercy seat, the Ark, the box, and the staves, and those are pretty basic. A box is a box, and a lid is a lid, and staves are staves, so there's not much contention there. So really I'm just going to look at the positioning of the cherubim. So it says, to make 2 cherubims of gold, of beaten work shalt thou make them, in the 2 ends of the mercy seat, and make 1 cherubim on the one end, and the other cherubim on the other end. Even of the mercy seat shall ye make the cherubim on the 2 ends thereof. Now the reason I've highlighted on in bold in those 3 places is because of this picture here. A lot of people read on in Exodus 25 and they think that they should place the cherubims literally on the mercy seat, upon the mercy seat. Okay, and that's what it says there, so you would think that might be correct. Let's read on. And there I will meet with thee, and I will commune with thee from above the mercy seat, from between the 2 cherubims which are upon the ark of the testimony. So immediately that last sentence that's been bolded out shows us that God had to have enough room upon the mercy seat, because it was a seat, a throne, to dwell upon, between the 2 cherubims. And as Rebecca points out in arkfiles.net, this kind of positioning of the cherubim doesn't really leave enough room for a king to sit upon the throne, does it? So the point that she makes is a very good one. If you use this kind of illustration, then it's as if you're trying to, I'm going to say, not make room for the king of the ark. Okay, it's as if you don't really want him to be sitting on that throne. And instead of the king, or for God to be sitting upon the throne, look who's actually sitting on the throne. It's the cherubim. They're actually upon the throne. Now, as you know, if you sit, or in this case kneel, if you reside upon somebody else's throne, it would be representative of you wanting to usurp their title and their power. And we know that there is one cherubim who does want to do that. He wants to sit upon the throne of God and usurp the power that is due only to Jesus Christ. It says, "For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will be like the Most High." Okay, so it was actually Lucifer who wanted to sit on his throne and be like the Most High. And that's, I'm suggesting, what is represented in this kind of a depiction of the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, so let's read now from Patriarchs and Prophets, page 348. We're going to look at how the wings and the faces are positioned, and also how the cherubim are positioned. Whether they're meant to be right up upon the mercy seat or on the ends of it, we're going to go back to in a second. But first of all, let's look at the other positioning. The cover of the sacred chest was called the mercy seat. This was wrought of one solid piece of gold and was surmounted by golden cherubim, one standing on each end. So immediately we can see that this kind of thing where they're seen to be kneeling is wrong. It wouldn't be biblical. And anyone that claims to have found the Ark of the Covenant and it looked anything like this, where the cherubim are kneeling or prostrated or anything like that, then that wouldn't be correct according to the spirit of prophecy. This picture, however, the one that Ron Wyatt claims, does show the cherubim to be standing. And you'll notice that one wing is stretched forth on high and the other wing is folded over the body. Okay, so let's go back to that quote. One standing on each end. One wing of each angel was stretched forth on high, so we've just seen that in Ron Wyatt's depiction, while the other was folded over the body. Okay, exactly as Ron Wyatt said he saw. See Ezekiel 1:11. Okay, so that's interesting. Ellen White there in brackets tells us to compare Ezekiel chapter 1 with what the earthly ark looked like. As she continues in tokens of reverence and humility. We're going to do that in a minute, by the way. We're going to go to Ezekiel 1. The position of the cherubim, with their faces turned toward each other and looking reverently downward toward the ark, represented the reverence with which the heavenly hosts regard the law of God and their interest in the plan of redemption. So that's, you can see exactly what Ellen White says. The cherubim are standing, one wing is stretched up on high, the other wing is folded over the body, and the faces are looking one toward each other and downward toward the mercy seat. Not like that. Here you see both wings stretched on high. Okay, CET 85. The temple of God was open in heaven, and I was shown the ark of God covered with a mercy seat. Two angels stood, one at either end of the ark. So we know that the earthly ark is a pattern of the true ark in heaven, and if you have two angels standing one at either end in the heavenly ark, then that's what you should see on the earthly ark. It was a perfect pattern of the heavenly ark. And it says, with their wings spread over the mercy seat and their faces turned towards it. And so here you do see their wings, plural, spread over the mercy seat and their faces turned toward it. Wings plural because it's one of each. One wing of each cherubim makes two. Christ in his sanctuary, page 5. Above the ark, where the angels stood, was an exceeding bright glory. And you can see here that the angels are above the ark. Okay, their bodies do extend above the ark. And they are standing. Okay, it says where the angels stood. Back to Exodus 25, verse 20. And the cherubims shall stretch forth their wings on high, covering the mercy seat with their wings. That's exactly what they're doing with one of their wings, one each. And their faces shall look one to another. Toward the mercy seat shall the faces of the cherubims be. Okay, that's what their faces are doing. Okay, this from One Bible Commentary 1107, and also found in those other references at the top. The ark of the earthly sanctuary was the pattern of the true ark in heaven. So that's what we've just said. There, in heaven, beside the heavenly ark, stand living angels. So she's saying in heaven the living angels, the cherubim, are standing and they're beside the ark. They're not standing on top of the ark, which would be quite irreverent, actually, to be standing up on a throne, somebody else's throne. To be, I mean, even to stand on your chair as human beings is regarded as rude. There beside the heavenly ark stand living angels at either end of the ark, each with one wing overshadowing the mercy seat and stretching forth on high, while the other wings are folded over their forms in token of reverence and humility. And that's exactly what you see there. Okay, the faces, the one wing stretched, the one wing over the body, standing on either side of the ark. Okay. All right, now, as I said, we're going to go back to this word on, because as we said, in the heavenly ark, on the heavenly ark, the angels are not standing on it. Okay, so what does the word on mean? It's the Hebrew word, and it can also mean beside, or coming forth out of, or touching. It was Ross Patterson that did this research, which helped me out here, and he made the point that we can speak of wing mirrors being on a car, but it doesn't mean they're sitting on top of the roof. Or we can talk about tyres or wheels being on a car, and again, it doesn't mean the wheels are on top of the roof. And it's the same for this Hebrew word. In Exodus 25:19, when it says the cherubims are on the two ends thereof, it is a Hebrew 5921. And if you go through the Bible, if you look in Exodus 27 and Exodus 12, it translates that same Hebrew word as before, as in front of, or and in Exodus 12:7, it says, "And they shall take the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper doorpost of the houses." I'm sure that would be talking about the Passover blood. And of course it wasn't sprinkled on top of the doorposts. Essentially there was no such thing really. It was just sprinkled on, in other words, touching. So that's exactly that. So that word on doesn't force the angels to be standing on top of the throne. They can be coming out of or beside or touching. We see the same thing again in Exodus 37 verse 8. Okay, in fact, Exodus 37, describing the Ark of the Covenant, uses a different Hebrew word. It's H for Hebrew 4480, which usually means from or out of. And in the margin, if you look at Exodus 37:8, it does actually read out of. Let's read it. One cherubim on, or coming out of, the end on this side, and another cherubim on the other end on that side. Out of. Okay, so there, that same word which has been translated on is now translated out of the mercy seat, made he the cherubims. So he made them coming out of the side of the mercy seat, not standing up upon the top of it. And it says again, on or out of the two ends thereof. So if you were to read it as it was translated in the margin, it would read, one cherub out of the end of this side, and another cherub out of the end on that side. Out of the mercy seat made he the cherubims on the two ends thereof. And that's the marginal reading of Exodus 37 verse 8. And again, the spirit of prophecy does back that up. The ark of the earthly sanctuary was the pattern of the true ark in heaven, and you'll remember it said, there beside the heavenly ark stand living angels at either end of the ark. Okay, so as Rebecca again pointed out, the only depiction that she, I, or anyone knows of with the angels standing beside but also being above the mercy seat is the one that you see below, and that is a artist's representation of what Ron Wyatt saw. No other claim matches the spirit of prophecy. So all the people that have claimed to have found the ark in Ethiopia, it's in Ethiopia, or it's Mount Nebo or Iraq, or I believe England or Ireland or Rome, or all these places, they don't show the Ark of the Covenant to look like this. This is the only one that matches the Bible and the spirit of prophecy. Alright, now we saw Ellen White referencing Ezekiel 1, and that's because in Ezekiel 1 it talks about the heavenly Ark of the Covenant and Ezekiel's vision of the heavenly throne. Exodus 25 says that the earthly ark is the pattern the exact pattern of the heavenly ark. I think that sentiment is repeated in Hebrews as well. So let's see what it says about the Ark of the Covenant in Ezekiel chapter 1. It says, "And they had the hands of a man under their wings on their four sides." And that's what you see right there. You can see the wing that's folded under the body. There's the cherubim's hands are extending out from under that. Can you see that properly from such a distance? Let's try and zoom in a bit. Is that picking it up? Okay, I hope you can see the hands, that they're kind of holding on to the mercy seat, or holding on to the Ark of the Covenant, coming from underneath the wing that's folded over the body. And in fact you can see the other hand underneath the wing, which is stretched forth on high, covering the mercy seat too. So you can see the man's hand. Verse 9, their wings were joined one to another, and we do see that as well. The wings that are stretched forth on high are joined one to another. Verse 11, their wings were stretched upward, 2 wings of every one were joined one to another, and 2 covered their bodies. So there's one difference between the heavenly ark and the earthly ark, is that in the earthly ark they only have 1 pair of wings each, whereas it seems that in heaven the cherubim have 2 pairs each, but they're still positioned in the same way. Verse 22, and the likeness of the firmament upon the heads of the living creature was as the colour of the terrible crystal stretched forth over their heads above. Now, verse 22 is interesting because Ron Wyatt did say that there was a most amazing wall behind the Ark of the Covenant in the cave, and it emitted the colours of the rainbow. It was like a living colour emitting from that wall, and it was almost like these colours were sort of moving. I'm probably not describing it very well, but I think you can find that description in his last interview with Bill Fry. I do have that on my website at www.arkofthecovenant.co.uk. Verse 28, as the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud in the day of rain, so is the appearance of the brightness round about. And so that, of course, is talking about the colours of the rainbow, just like Ron Wyatt said in his last interview. Okay, just drawing to the end now, we'll turn to Early Writings, page 32. She's talking about the heavenly ark, and she's saying that she saw Jesus standing by the ark, and in the middle there in bold you'll see that in the ark in heaven was the golden pot of manna and Aaron's rod that budded. Okay, so those are no longer to be found in the earthly ark. The tables of stone are in the earthly ark. We saw that from 1 Bible Commentary 1109. She says they're still there, safely hidden from the human family, and in God's appointed time they'll be shown to the world with a testimony. But the golden pot of manna and Aaron's rod that budded is taken to heaven. So as we said, this really, according to the Bible and the spirit of prophecy, is how the cherubim should look. Any other kind of depiction or representation or allegation that it's been discovered and it looks anything like this, not leaving any room for the king to sit upon his ark, but instead having cherubim usurping the place of the king of the ark, is making of none effect the spirit of prophecy.